Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd do a mixed haul. I picked up some stuff over the last while from private sales, from thrift stores and other areas, and so I thought I'd go through some of it. I I've now had a policy where I'm going to watch the media, at least the movies, and listen to the CDs. Reading the books, not so much, but I'm going to watch the movies before I show them to you, and listen to the CDs before I show them to you, and the books less so because a book takes such a long time to read. Usually, it'll take me a couple of weeks to read a book, so I'll just put out books that I know and just ignore the other ones that I've picked up. But anyway, so I thought let's start with a Disney film. All right, so here's the Aristocats. Now this is in Blu-ray and DVD format, and I watched them in both. And uh, how to put this? I think the DVD is better than the Blu-ray, to be honest, because of the less clarity of it. If you can believe it or not. Uh, I haven't come across this in all the older Disney films, but okay, how to put this? Okay, give me 3 seconds. Okay, the older Disney films were done, where they paint or they draw, and they put another picture on top of another picture, and then they start filming it, and the movement of the film makes the animation move, makes it like action or whatever, right? So most of the films that they've done, where they've transferred or upgraded to a Blu-ray, um, that transition has been good. Has been You enjoy actually watching the film more because of its clarity, right? So, but this one seems to be the exception in a way, because when I watched the Blu-ray, it was so detailed that you could notice all the brush strokes and the drawings of the characters moving around, and it made it seem like it's unreal. It doesn't seem natural or whatever, right? So the actual drawing of it kind of was accentuated with the Blu-ray's clarity, that it made it seem less real. I know cartoons aren't real, but you can suspend your belief when you see a cartoon move, that it's a moving cartoon. It isn't individual pictures put together and then you run them through or whatever, right? So, but this one you notice that in the Aristocat. So I think the DVD was a better watch, or even a VHS tape was a better watch for me, because when I watched this just recently, that's what I noticed the most, is the movement is kind of, the drawing is so noticeable, the lining and everything is so noticeable that it distracts you from the actual movement of the animation, right? So the DVD is a little blurrier, and then you don't notice it as much, and then it makes you concentrate more on the story of the film than the actual visualness that you see on the screen, right? So, but I didn't have it, so now I have it on Blu-ray. I can add it to my Disney collection. All right, so that's the Aristocats. Next up is Wes Craven's Deadly Blessing. This might be Craven's first film, or it's one of his early films. All right, and it stars Ernest Borgnine, and you see actually Sharon Stone in this film in one of her early roles. All right, so this film is about a woman, a girl, well, a young woman who's married to a Hittite, or an ex-Hittite. Hittite being, a community of devout, I guess, Christians or whatever, and they don't mix with other people, they don't mix with technology and all that, right? So what happens is, the son of the leader of the Hittites ends up leaving the church and marrying a, a woman outside of his church, and now he has a farm that's just beside that Hittite community, and he ends up dead, and then his wife is there by herself, and she invites two of her friends over to the house because she feels lonely because her husband's dead. And then all hell breaks loose, and you'll end up getting some interesting stuff, involving the devil or evil and things like that, that Wes Craven is known for. And what's his name is in it? Michael Berryman, if you remember Michael Berryman from The Hills Have Eyes and other ones. He's got um, that condition, I can't remember it, where you have stubby fingers with no fingernails and stuff, and his face is strange looking. It ended up making him famous for being like uh, a creep in horror films, right? So, um, he was in a bunch of Wes Craven films, right? So anyway, so that it was a pretty good watch. It wasn't on the level of, let's say, a Freddy Krueger film or the Scream franchises, but the early work of Wes Craven is good, and this is kind of like the beginning of Wes Craven, right? So, and it's a Scream Factory edition. So that's Deadly Blessings. Next up is Fritz Lang's The Spiders, which is basically an adventure story. It's almost like now this was in the early 20s or late teens actually when this film came out, 1919, German film. It's black and white, silent film, and it's basically about a guy who uh, there's a scientist that's trapped on an island, and he ends up sending a message out in a bottle that this adventurer guy ends up getting, and the note describes all these Inca treasures and gold and everything else, and so this adventurer is going to go find it. But then you got this evil um, society called the Spiders or whatever, a group of uh, secret society that's going to go after it as well. And it's basically almost like all the Indiana Jones films were like homages to this film because you have the Indiana Jones character and then you have the evil, whether it's Nazis or whoever, this evil society that's going after the same thing as Indiana Jones is going after. So it's kind of like an early version of an Indiana Jones adventure film. So, and it's not bad. You just have to do a lot of reading basically. So they'll show you a scene and then the person will be moving his mouth, and obviously you can't hear it because it's silent film. And then they'll cut to a I don't know what, a pasteboard with wording on it that says what they're saying, right? So it's that early form of black and white film. So and then you see a screen that says what the person said, right? So it is kind of slow paced, and Kino did clean it up, but it's from 1919, so you're going to get the white lines going down and everything else about it. And, the stark difference in different pieces of the film where it's like kind of like a lighter black and white, and then it switches to another scene, and that scene ends up being like more brown colored, brown and white kind of idea, and you will notice the differences, and it kind of um, distracts you from the whole pace of the movie, though it's different coloring. But overall, I mean, it's more. I think it's a film. I mean, if you're a Fritz Lang fan, Fritz Lang is one of the big names in early cinema. So you watch his stuff, and if you're a historian, like a movie historian, cinephile, this would be something up that lane. All right. So that's Fritz Lang's The Spiders. Next up is Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. I didn't have this. I don't know how good this one is. The Lion King just outshines this one so much that do you even bother watching it? But I didn't have it in my library, so I added it. Then we have Ricky and the Flash. This was a pretty good film. Basically, you see Meryl Streep playing a rock star, basically she had a dream of being in a rock band and becoming famous, and she didn't really become famous, but it keeps her employed. She plays at this bar, and she has a boyfriend who's Rick Springfield of Jessie Girl fame. He plays the guitarist in the band, and she has a family that she left in order to chase her dreams. She left Kevin Kline and especially a daughter. She has two sons she left behind, and now the daughter ends up being suicidal. So she goes back home uh, to see what's going on, and then you have all that interplay between the family that she left behind and then her son, who's gay, is getting married. She has a gay son and then a straight son, and the straight son is the one that's getting married. Man, I watched this less than a week ago, and it's still blurry. God, I'm getting old. All right, but anyways, overall, it's pretty good. And the attraction to this film is seeing Meryl Streep in a role that she usually doesn't play. So um, it was enjoyable. I watched it through. I didn't feel like I wasted my hour and a half watching this film, but I wouldn't put it on a top 10 list or anything. But it wasn't bad. And it's directed by a guy that I collect, who's Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme is the director. All right, next up is I saw this on the shelf and I said, "Hey, I like Japanese, like B slasher film kind of things, and this one is right up my alley, which is Blood: The Last Vampire. It also has a girl in the lead character of an action film, which I always enjoy. Um, so, uh, so I picked it up, and it was okay. I thought it was a Japanese film, but it isn't. It's an American film with Japanese characters, I think, really. It seems like an American film, right? Because everybody actually speaks English. It's not subtitled or anything, right? So, but it isn't bad. She's a monster hunter with a samurai sword, right? So, all right. So then we have one of my favorite films when I first watched it, and so I rewatched it again, and it's The Tao of Steve, which basically, it says, the coolest name, or there's a whole philosophy behind the name Steve, like Steve McQueen or Steve Austin, from the $60 Million Man, and those Steves and everything. Then this guy builds this philosophy around, that those character traits on how to pick up women, right? And he's not like the prettiest of guys, but he does really well with the girls because he has this Tao of Steve that he uses, right? So then there's this newbie or whatever in the film who he ends up kind of mentoring on this philosophy or whatever, but then he kind of goes against it in order to find love and everything. Anyways, it was quite an interesting film. I quite enjoyed it because the lead character isn't like a Pierce Bronson character. He's a guy with a pot belly and everything. It's pretty funny. All right, so that's The Tao of Steve. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to try to find that on Blu-ray if I can find it. And what's up next? All right, so then we have The Last Laugh. And this, my friend, is an extremely good film. All right. It's a silent film. It's a black and white film. All the things that maybe would make you not enjoy a film. It's not in color. There's no dialogue. But the whole film is basically, and there isn't cuts where you have, at least that I recall, where they put words on that you have to read. It's basically all done silently, and it's basically about a man who is a what do you call those guys that are in front of hotels that open up the door and help you with your baggage? All right, those guys. And he wears a really impressive coat, and he feels very proud of his job, and he does his job very well. And then his manager sees him because this taxi pulls up, and there's this huge um, trunk that he has to carry off the top of the taxi, and he's looking for help from younger guys, but there was nobody there at the time, so he ends up putting it on his shoulder and he walks it into the hotel. Now he's not a young guy, so after that he kind of needs to sit down for a second to catch his breath, and then his manager sees him sitting down drinking water and thinks, okay, this guy can't do his job anymore, so he ends up uh, telling him he can't do the job that and uh, that he's been so proud his whole life of doing. All right, and what his boss does is designate him to the bathroom facility in the hotel where he cleans up after people after they use the washroom and wash their hands and everything. He's doing that, which is like a demotion kind of thing, and he's really depressed about it. And because he goes back to his neighborhood. It's a working class neighborhood, and he's got the impressive coat, and people look at him and feel pride for him, and he feels pride for himself, and his wife loves him because of it. And then he ends up losing that job, and he doesn't know how to tell his wife, so he hides the fact from his wife. Well, what they did was they took his uniform away from him and put it in a locked cabinet. And so what he does is he gets the key for that locked cabinet and take it, and then he wears that. He doesn't wear it at work. He goes to work and does his bathroom job, but then when he leaves, he puts the coat back on and feels pride again, and he walks into his neighborhood, and everybody still feels pride for him and everything, but it's all a lie, right? And then his wife finds out about it and leaves him. He's a desperate guy, whatever, right? So it's basically you know a film on the working class and the perils of working for others and being poor, or let's say not rich and independent type of thing, and how forces can come around as you age to humiliate you and everything. So it's an extremely good film by F.W. Murnau. Is that how you spell his name? Murnau. Yeah. F.W. Murnau. Uh, so this one is definitely going in my collection. It's extremely good film. I would watch it again. All right. I think that's all the films that I've watched since my last, thrift store haul or mixed haul or whatever. I also listened to some. Oh, maybe there's a few more. I don't know. Anyway, so here's Joni Mitchell's Both Sides now. I don't know if you've listened to Joni Mitchell or not, but her 60s and 70s work. Blue is probably her best album. Maybe my personal favorite is The Hissing of Summer Lawns. I really enjoy that one. This one is basically a straightforward jazz uh, album where she does a lot of standards or a lot of other people's music, and then she throws in some of her own songs, like Both Sides Now, which came out in an earlier '70s album. I can't remember which one it was, but she does like a live version of it on this, which is pretty good. It's one of her most iconic songs. So if you like Joni Mitchell's voice, you like the aesthetic of Joni Mitchell's singing, um, just add a jazz band behind her, and then you got this album, which came out in like it's one of her later albums, came out like 2000 or whatever, right? So that's this one. I don't highly recommend it. If you're going to listen to Joni Mitchell, I would suggest getting Blue or like The Hissing of Summer Lawns. I really enjoyed as well. All right, here's the Who's greatest album. All right, who's next? Uh, they've had a number of great albums, but this is the album that many of the songs that you'll hear on the radio, on classic rock stations or dad rock, that you're going to hear, like Baba O'Reilly, Bargain, Behind Blue Eyes, Won't Get Fooled Again. Those are all on this album. This is probably their greatest album, and I would put this in a list of the greatest albums of all time. You'll have a Led Zeppelin album, you'll have a Beatles album, you'll have a Rolling Stones album, you'll have a Doors album, you'll have this album uh, alongside it, right? Okay. So if you have not listened to this album, go try to find it, pick it up, and you'll really enjoy the Who. All right. All right. Next up is another one of the greatest albums of all time. You throw in with Who's Next, and that's Dark Side of the Moon. Now, personally, me speaking, my favorite album from Pink Floyd is The Wall. It's the first album I ever bought when I was a kid, back in like, what was it, like 80, 81? I think it came out in 79. This one came out in 73, if I remember correctly. And it's probably what people would consider Pink Floyd's greatest album. If you're only going to get three albums, like you need to get the Sid Barrett album, which is their first. All right, their first album that would be the Sid Barrett album. This would be the David Gilmour album, and then The Wall would be like, man, I'm surprised I remembered all their names, but the Roger Waters album would be, the Wall. I mean, you have metal and some other music in between, which is good, Animals and other things. But the three main albums you want from Pink Floyd is their first album. Can't remember the name of it now. I'll put it here, or I already put it there, right? This album and The Wall. All right. So if you have not listened to this album, you're missing out. Go into a dark room, turn off the lights, put it on your stereo, and just play it. Close your eyes and listen to the magic of Pink Floyd. All right. So next up after that is Stan Getz. If you watch any of my previous videos, you know that the jazz that I enjoy the most are female-led vocal jazz or jazz that is led by a saxophone. And Stan Getz is one of the best saxophone players in jazz history. And this one is a Columbia Jazz masterpiece. It has that purplish blue border around it. Any of those, if you see them, just pick them up. They're really great. They go into the Columbia catalog and they just pull out either albums that they've previously released or compilations. This is more of a compilation, I think. But you get to hear Stan Getz on sax, and it's extremely good. All right. Next up after that is probably my favorite Billy Joel album, The Nylon Curtain. Mostly because it has the song Pressure on it, which is my all-time favorite Billy Joel song. Um, I liked his other album, the one with Uptown Girl on it, and Innocent Man. That album is good as well, but probably this one is my favorite because it has Pressure on it. Now, it has some other really good songs on it, well, like Goodnight Saigon and Scandinavian Skies. Allentown is probably one of the big songs from this, about working class and people, becoming unemployed because there's no work, that kind of idea. So I wouldn't put this into a top list of all the greatest albums of all time. If I was to put any Billy Joel album in that, it would be his double greatest hits album. His double greatest hits album is probably his best. You get all of his music in two CDs or two albums, or whatever, right? So, but this one is probably my favorite Billy Joel album. All right, and then we have found this Oxford World Classic, another one of the newest version, and that's Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I have not read it, but these are great. If you want to collect books and you don't want to spend a ton of money, the Penguin Classics or the Oxford World Classics are a good library that you can put up. They're all uniform and they really look good on the shelf, but they're also really good titles. If you pick up one that's like this, you can't go wrong with whatever you buy. So I have not read Bleak House. Great Expectations is probably my favorite Charles Dickens album book. I mean, what else do I have here? Um, I have The Outsider, uh, or L'Étranger, as they would say in French, by Camus. This is an extremely good novella. It would be up there with like Of Mice and Men and others that, shorter reads like George Orwell's Animal Farm. Add this to that one. If you have not read this, pick it up. It's an extremely good book. Then we have the Ancient Virgil's, how do you pronounce that? Aeneid? Aeneid? I don't know. Ignorant intellectual, right? This is one of the great early books. If you haven't read it, you're going to read Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and you're going to read this book when you're first starting reading Western literature. All right, and then we got Peter Carey's The True History of the Kelly Gang. That gang of bank robbers back in the day. Well, he kind of glorifies them in this novel, this book. All right, and then we have A Long Day's Journey into Night, one of Eugene O'Neill's great plays. And it's not. I think it's a four-act play. I'll, I'll tell you, but it's a long book. It's a pretty thick book for a play, right? So, and it's one of his most famous. So you probably really enjoy that one. I haven't read it yet. So, what else do we have here? Do we have anything else? Yes, we have this. I found this sucker. All right. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, all right. If you haven't canceled J.K. Rowling because of her um, opinions on safe spaces for women where transgender women who are biological men are going into those spaces, and she has complained about it. So a lot of people have canceled her because of it. But if not, if you're a fan of the Harry Potter, this is a really nice edition of it. It's a box set, all right, of all the Harry Potter books, which is kind of cool. Right, so it has all of them, starting from the Philosopher's Stone and ending in the Deadly Hollows, right? Anyways, I have not read these books. I had no interest in reading them. I watched the first two movies, and those bored the hell out of me as well. So I don't understand the fascination with Harry Potter. But that is just me. Most people would disagree. And this is a really nice, box set of all the Harry Potter books. So that's kind of cool. All right. And should I do these? Yeah. Why not? Okay. So I had a gentleman come over and buy a bunch of books off of me, and he had a bunch of books that he wanted to get rid of as well. He's a very avid reader, and he's bought books off me a few times. So uh, what he said is, "How about we just do a trade?" So I told him, "Okay, if you're selling books, right, you need to buy them at a lower price than you sell them for, right? And then when you put up an ad on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace, it takes you some time. It might take you 10 minutes. You got to take pictures of the film, pictures of the book or whatever. Then you list it. Then you do a write up, uh, a write up on that, and so it takes a while. And I mean, there are shortcuts that you can take. Like once you, let's say you had this book, so you take a picture of it. So Dubliners by James Joyce. You take a picture of it, and then you put it up, and then you write a synopsis of the book and why people should buy the book. And and they give the pricing and everything else. Well, what I do to save myself time is once I write a synopsis of a book, then I'll just keep it in a Word file, and then if I come across that book again, when I put it up again after the other one sells, then I still have that synopsis. I don't have to write it again, so it saves me some time. But still, when you put up ads, it takes time to put up ads. So you want to be compensated for the time that you put it up. So you need to find books at a, if I'm going to a private sale, I'm going to want to pick up books. Well, the rule of thumb, here's a rule of thumb for you. You look at the new price of the book. All right. So let's say the new price is uh, $20. Okay. Um, what you do is you cut that in half, and that's around what you're going to sell that book for because it's used, right? And then you don't want to buy it for that amount. You want to buy it for a third of what you're going to sell it for, and that gives you that leeway in the money to make it worth the time to put up the ad, right? So if I have this one, let's say, so this one it's £7, so that's what, like maybe $15 Canadian. So I would sell this for maybe $8, but I would buy it for like two, maybe three. All right. And that difference would be the amount of time that I would put the ad up, right? So rule of thumb is half the price of the new. I mean, if it's a new book, if you're selling older books, then you got to use a little bit more of your knowledge or whatever, right? But if they're just books that people have bought new and now they've read them and they don't want them anymore and they want to sell them to a bookstore, it's half the new price and then a third of that. That's what you offer it. So it's not a lucrative thing if you're selling books to a bookstore or a private seller. You're not going to get very much money for them, right? But anyway, so he came in. So I I gave him a discount off the books that he bought off of me with the books that I got off of him. And the books that I got off of him were Travels with Charlie, In Search of America by John Steinbeck. His best book, personally, is Of Mice and Men. At least it's my choice. All right, I have not read this. This is a paperback. All right. Then I just showed you Dubliners by James Joyce, one of the great Irish writers. I have not read Dubliners. I tried to read his, what was the long one? Ulysses. I tried to read that. I got about 6 chapters in. I just had to stop. It was just driving me nuts. So he's not one of my favorite authors. But I did read, what was the shorter one that he had? Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. That was kind of interesting. So, all right, then we have Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms. All right, this is the one where he goes. Anyways, he's one of the great American authors. A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. All right, it's basically they made it into a film. I've seen the film. I have not read the book. Then Steinbeck's Cannery Row. All right, another book that I picked up from the guy. And then David Foster Wallace, Consider the Lobster. All right, and Virginia Woolf's famous To the Lighthouse. All right, so I picked all these up. He got a bunch of books off of me, and I got money off of him as well. And I basically bought all these books for maybe $3 each. Um, so, and I think that is everything. I think I did this one and this one before. To the Modern Library, which I collect, and the Everyman Library, the newer version of it, which I collect as well. And I think that's everything. Do I have any albums? No, no albums. Oh, that's everything. All right, so I have a bunch of movies I'm still watching upstairs and over here, and a bunch of books that I haven't gone through yet either. So there's always more stuff to do videos on, but thought I'd do this one, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. I'd like to try to get to 100. I think I'm at 51 or 52 subscribers now. I mean, like, I'm extremely popular, right? I mean, like others on YouTube have um, no right to compare themselves to my popularity. Let's put it that way. Anyways, I'm kidding. But if you join me, that would be great. See if we can get to 100, and then we'll go up from there. But talking about movies may not be a super popular thing on YouTube. So maybe it's a niche market, right? So anyway, so those are the books. the albums or CDs and the movies that I now have done, and I can put them on my shelves. All right, and you have a great day. Like I said, think about subscribing, and I'll talk to you in my next video. And bye for now.